my name is Abby McCarthy, and today I have the pleasure of chatting to one of the most exciting, mesmerising, intriguing pop stars on the planet. Hello, Christine and the Queens. Bonjour.
What an intro. Bonjour.
How are you?
I'm good, yeah. How about you?
Yeah, good, thank
Yeah.
you. Before we kind of delve into the new album, let's take it back to where you finished off with the last record.
Yes.
How did you feel at the end of that campaign? Because that album kind of really launched you into the world and changed your life, really.
Yes, it's true. I felt happy but quite tired.
I imagine, yeah.
This is why we at some point as artists say, this is probably the time to stop that cycle. Have a month of sleep and see what happens. But yeah, actually I finished the tour with the UK on the first album. And it was like the constant, you know, I released the record in 2014, and since then it's been like constant surprises and new opportunities with it. And it was like being in a plane that always takes off without stopping. And it was wonderful, but it also, everything happened on the debut album, so I wanted very much to write the second chapter and not to be trapped in just one narrative, because I had like so much more to say. So yeah, but it was wonderful.
And growing up, what music would have been on in your house? What would have been kind of inspired you in the early days, do you think?
I'm lucky enough to have parents who have a fantastic taste in music.
Yes.
Props to my parents. So I had like lots of really cool vinyls at home, like from Bob Dylan to Klaus Nomi. And also myself, I listened to a lot of Björk when I was in high school. And American hip hop later on, like Kanye West, Travis Scott now, Kendrick Lamar. But yeah, at home I had like a really cool set of vinyls.
So your debut album was recorded and released in French, then
Yes.
you translated it into English.
Yep.
But with this new album, Chris, you've written simultaneously in both languages, is that right?
Yeah.
Was that a challenge?
I knew it would be a challenge, so I embraced it as a
Uh-huh.
writing technique, you see. So I kind of decided to make it a strength instead of just a challenge. You know, like every challenge, it's also challenging in the best way. It's kind of like, since I knew I would do a mirrored album, because I didn't want to choose which song would remain in French and be translated, it didn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
It became also in the writing something I was thinking of. And so phonetically and sometimes with the metaphors and everything, I was trying to make sure that could bleed back to English or like be transformed in French, and it became such a good way also to make sure the track was consistent. Like if I sometimes was failing to translate something, it was not a good sign.
And what are the main themes on Chris, would you say? From the few kind of jigsaw piece puzzles, you know, I've heard so far, it's kind of seemed quite centred on female desire.
Well, female because I'm female. But it's very much an album about desire written by my perspective, so yeah. Yes, but you know, even further than that, like desire as a force of chaos, and a good one. A way to complicate the narratives. Also, this album is about intricate narratives. Like I did want to address complexity as a writer in my record. Like I was inspired by records like The Velvet Rope by Janet Jackson. You have very much someone writing that record who addresses different facets of a personality, and it's not contradictory, but it's not something she explains either. She addresses her complexity.
And talk to me about the character of Chris.
So Christine and the Queens was like the first iteration of being honest and empowered, and Chris is just the latest iteration of who I became. So older. Yep. A bit more confident and loose, but also a bit like everything is kind of like more extreme also. Like I think I'm allowing myself to be even more honest, vulnerable, eager, horny, sad. There is a sense of, it's more daring even, and it's even more human, if I may say. Like I don't want to become like a construction, actually remote from the world. I don't want to become like an icon or anything. I kind of, actually the more I write, the more I feel human and close to you. And so Chris is basically me pulling you closer and saying, actually, I have more things to say to you.
Yeah.
And I'm hiding even less, if it makes sense.
And what is your favourite song on the album?
Oh la la.
Which one did you kind of write and you were like, you know what, I'm really, really proud of this?
Doesn't Matter is a song I kind of like, I'm listening to that song. I can listen to it and enjoy it as if it was not one of my songs.
That's great.
So that probably must mean something.
And Damn Funk obviously features on the album. How did that
Yeah.
come about? He's awesome.
Chris.
Yeah, I know. I can't hear Chris without doing the Chris.
Everything Damn Funk says can be like a jingle. It's like, yeah, Chris, no worries, man. I'm going to do that for you. And it's not even
Is he
forcing
speaking voice like
yes,
that?
he's speaking like that.
Oh,
Chris,
amazing.
so nice to meet you. I'm doing it less good than it does, but it's like that. It's smooth. It's smooth. It's like
Yeah.
he should be a host of a radio show that should be mythical, you know,
Oh, yeah.
legendary.
Amazing.
I've been a huge fan of Damn Funk. It's not like glossy G-Funk. It's kind of like more raw, tough, grainy, textury, meaty textures. And he's like a self-taught musician who does amazing solos of guitars. Like one of my favorite records ever is 7 Days of Funk, a record he did with Snoop Dogg.
And I can't go another day. You make it hard to stay away.
The vibe on it is insane. Like it's just like pure feeling. He's like one of those musicians who don't really think music but just feel it. So I was like, when I wrote Dame Dis-moi, which was almost like a parodic G-Funk sample, and on top of it I was being really French and weird. I was like, I need a beautiful freak on that record with me, and I need an actor of G-Funk, you know, that could, you know, also make it not appropriation but like a classic homage to G-Funk.
Is there anyone else you'd like to collaborate with?
I love Troye Sivan also. We kind of talked a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my, I die every night with you.
Amazing.
We
isn't
kind
it?
of consider. I don't know. I
can
don't want to
hear
like.
that.
I don't want to like say something if it doesn't happen. But we kind of talk.
And you've always been known for your live shows, and obviously that's such a big part of what you do. How do you prepare for them?
I don't. No, I'm joking. I do. Then again, I'm like, it's like staging also a show, because for example, like I've been doing live residencies to work on that show,
Oh, cool.
on the second show. And I'm both a stage director and a performer. So first I stage it like a stage director, like I work on the stage design and the intricacies of it and the narrative of it. And then I take the hat of the stage director off, and I'm like, okay, I'm on stage now. And it's back in the muscles, and there's a lot of discipline also, because if you sing and dance at once without playback, you have to, it's honestly monastic life also, like you have to, like an athlete, you have to relentlessly try and train. There is a sense of, it's really humbling also. The physical aspect of the performance is really humbling. It's and it's why I'm linked to the dancers at some point, because there is a sense of like every time it's different, and every time you have to reassert and prove it, and you become a bit like an animal. I like the stage because of that. It's only gut feelings. It's how hot it is, and like how many people are in front. You adapt to everything all the time, so you kind of lose your cleverness for a second, which feels great.
So is playing live your favourite thing? Favourite thing that you get
Might
to do
be
as
one
Chrissy
of
and
my
the Queens?
favorite things ever. Yeah.
Don't feel like a girlfriend, but lover. Damn, I'd be your lover.
Now, being an artist obviously comes with lots of highs. You get to play all these amazing live shows,
Yeah.
release your art into the world, but obviously it comes with some downsides as well. What
Yeah.
would you say are like the challenges you faced?
Well, you have to have thick skin when you're exposed, because with exposure comes more possibilities to be wounded. It's kind of like a different life also that starts for you, a more nomadic, harder to relate probably life. You have to preserve your relationships if you want them to be preserved. And it's with the force fields that changes, because you kind of are more exposed. It's really possible to get lost in it.
And how does the future of Chrissy and the Queens look to you?
Coming from that second record onwards,
Onwards,
I already think of the third one.
Really?
Yes, I'm going to. I can't say much. It's going to be really interesting. It's always like it's like a storytelling. Like finishing the first chapter, I was thinking of the second chapter. And thinking of the second chapter, and I announced to myself a moment of my life where I would experiment desire and chaos with that second record. And now I finished that second chapter, and I'm like, it's going to go that direction. I know it.
Okay.
I hope I'll get to have like several albums that people could talk about fondly, like, oh, this was her crazy moment. Oh, this is a Protestant sad record. I just wish people will give me enough time to do a gesture that could be like a whole set of records. The artists I love consistently risked things on every record and try to reinvent what it means to be an artist on every record. I hope I'll get to do that.
I'm sure you will.
Hopefully.
Chris, thank you so much for your time.
You are welcome.